Welcome to the 26th episode of the Decentralized Opportunity podcast. I'm your host, Tanner Lytle, here with your other host,
Wyatt Carson. Hello.
Hey, so I kind of feel like this is pull you from your regular program content to bring you some breaking news episode.
I love it.
We've just been talking about, we had kind of a regular idea of what we're going to talk about. And then just even over the last day or two, just things are changing so quickly. What's happening in the world of business, our workforce, our communities. So want to kind of jump in, record a podcast with you. All right, setup. What's going on?
So right before we hit record, we're talking about this. It seems like every week or every 2 weeks, there's something new coming out. There's a law. Tanner, can you remember? It's some sort of law where, technology reproduces at an exponential rate for blah.
Is it Moore's Law?
That one. We've blown it out of the water. This is no longer tech evolving at times 2 every year or something like that. It is evolving times 5 every 2 weeks. And of course, what we're talking about is AI. And not just ChatGPT, but now all sorts of crazy other things. This thing called AutoGPT, right? And I think we're starting to see the public consciousness really latch on to the fact that AI is here. It's not a fad. It's not a gimmick. It's real. And you see businesses and technology scrambling and, spinning their wheels trying to catch up. But how about you? What are you seeing right now? Why is our emergency news, breaking podcast? No, that I love how you said that. That was perfect. What are you seeing out there in the world?
Yeah, so a couple months ago, we recorded an episode on ChatGPT. It just came out, and we're like, okay, this is wild. It's going to change how we do work. And for the last few months, we've been using it. I use it every day for a lot of my tasks. And just recently, it's starting to hit the zeitgeist of my local community and my coworkers, and everyone started asking me like, "Hey, do you know about this ChatGPT?" I'm of course the person who's up on news. I have a podcast after all, and
Right.
I'm also tech support for our company somehow, even though I'm not a tech person in that role. But I will have random phone calls with people that I've met maybe once, and they will bring up, "Hey, have you heard of ChatGPT?" And yeah, it's crazy. But that was 2 months ago, 3 months ago, or something. It launched. Since then, that was built off of GPT 3.5. Version 4 has come out, which is another exponential leap in terms of capability. And that was 3 weeks ago, approximately, from the time we were recording this. And then now there's iterations happening on this. So I just want to kind of pull back for a second and give some context to people. So when I was in high school, I was obsessed with computer graphics. It's what I wanted to be. I love Pixar, Disney movies, DreamWorks. Actually, instead of rather going to a traditional school, I did an apprenticeship program online for computer animation. So I trained under people from Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, ILM, all these different places to learn how to become a 3D animator. The rate in which those changes happened, let's say, was once every 2 to 3 years. Basically, every time Pixar created a new movie, they would add some new leap in terms of technology. I remember a big one was Monsters Inc. was Sully's hair. Hair was really, really hard to do in computer graphics. That's why things were like dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, because it was like leathery textures. They could do that pretty well, but they couldn't do hair. So there was hair, and then it was some subsurface scattering and some types of lighting. Essentially, like every Pixar movie in the 2000s was basically just, what can we do with this new technology that we developed? It was like a tech demo, and then built a story around it. It was kind of a neat idea. But the rate in which from when I was in high school, let's say started around 2000 to even today is, well, that's 23 years. Goodness, that makes me feel old. I am seeing about that rate of change happening in Midjourney, which is an image-based generative AI, in the course of about 8 months. So we're taking what used to be a cycle of every 2 to 3 years of some new development, and that's broken into what, maybe months, but now it's feeling like it's happening in weeks and sometimes even days. These new features that they're coming out with are just exponential in the change. So when we talk about, oh, this new tool is significantly different than what we talked about a couple months ago, it's of that level of leap. It's like talking about something that was created originally in the early 2000s, and now it feels outdated in today's technology.
Yeah, it's insane. So both of us, like you said, we got into ChatGPT. I think I think you were playing in Midjourney before ChatGPT, right?
Correct. Yep.
And that was cool and nifty, and we can make some cool photos. And I also kind of demoed it a little bit and made some less than stellar photos. But then we both got into ChatGPT, like you said, this version 3.5. And it blew us away. We're like, holy crap, this is smart. I remember my first thought, which is silly now, approximately a month and a half later, something like that, thinking, wow, this is better than Google. That's because it's not even close to Google. Google wishes it had that kind of capability from the time it created its search engine. And don't get me wrong, they're making their own and everyone's making their own. And we'll get to that here in a minute. And then ChatGPT 4 came out, and 4, the logic is stronger. It's more concise. It can produce just lists and lists of data and information and prompts, and can really do so much for you. Sometimes at a level better than others.
Can I illustrate a recent real life point from the difference alone from GPT 3.5, which is what
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT originally had, to 4? So someone posted on Reddit, and the title of the thread was ChatGPT saved my dog's life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And I don't know if you've heard this story before.
I have, but please share it.
Okay. So this guy had, I think it was an Australian Shepherd, similar to me, and his dog was sick. And he took him to the vet, and they ran some blood work, and the vet, prescribed something, said, oh, he has this, and the dog wasn't getting better. So what the person did was, they, using GPT-4, because 3.5 didn't have the logic to do it, uploaded the blood work from his dog's test, and asked ChatGPT to be the role of a veterinarian, look over the results of the blood, and explain to him what it meant, what those numbers meant, and what are possible issues that could be facing. And it gave him two solutions. One was what the original veterinarian gave him, and the second one was a second option. So he took that second option, went to a whole nother vet, and they diagnosed him as that, gave him the right pills, and the dog was fine. It was some illness that was born from ticks, and through the right medication to save that dog's life. But the fact that GPT-4 can do that when 3.5 couldn't, and effectively do a better result than what a real life veterinarian gave them in terms of service, is insane.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So that is an excellent segue into, well, actually, it is an excellent segue into this section, but I don't want to get there yet. Excellent section. It's an excellent segue into the industries and the uses that are already coming out. But before I approach that, I want to talk about fear. We talked about this in the last episode. We talked about it when we did AI. There is a lot of fear around AI. And I think both you and I and our entire friend group, we've all gone from one end of the spectrum to the other in regards to AI. We've all been like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing in the world. This is amazing. I'm going to use it for everything, all the way to like, this is kind of scary. And I think those are legitimate reactions that we need to address, and that every single human being who involves themselves with technology will have to address here shortly. You have to come face to face with AI, because this is not a fad. This is not going away. It will only get better. And society and business and personal endeavors are going to have to change. This is similar to the launch of the internet. Some people got really excited. Some people were like, it's going to go away. It's a fad, blah, 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 blah. Well, look at us now. Everything we do is involved with the internet. The Internet of Things happened, and suddenly you can, check your email on your refrigerator. AI is not going away. And that means you're either going to have to stick your head in the sand, or you're going to have to come to grips with what that means. And now the obvious obstacle that overcomes people's minds with fear is their job. AI can do so many things. You just told me a story where ChatGPT 4, version 4, basically played Dr. House with a dog and won, right? It's diagnosing medical symptoms. You can't do that on Google. And I'm sorry, WebMD. I know a lot of people claim that you did that. No, not everyone has cancer. But
or lupus.
Oh, lupus. Ooh, Dr. House. I'm glad someone else watched that show. That's people need to come to grips with that now. They need to understand that if you stick your head in the sand, you're going to be passed by in terms of this technology, right? Same thing with the internet. If you sat back and said, I'm never going to use it, I'm going to stick with my newspapers and my books, I bet you didn't go very far, right? Most people had to get on board with it. It's the same with AI. Are you getting a sense of that still? Is there a lot of resistance you're seeing when you talk about it?
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of not knowing at this point. And again, at the rate of change that are happening, people's initial reaction is a fearing change, like you were saying. They just don't understand. But I think it's important to illustrate what AI is and what AI isn't. So much of the whole science fiction mysticism, and you're getting all these people, AI, um, not skeptics, I would say, but people who are wanting to stop it. There's actually a big petition that Elon Musk signed to halt all development for 6 months, and that didn't happen. And apparently, he just bought 10,000 GPUs to start his own XAI company that's
Yep.
going to be based off Twitter, and that happened 2 days ago or something like that. But this is essentially just really advanced math matrices tables that they put billions and billions and trillions of points of information and do learning cycles many, many times through reinforcement learning to help it predict what it is. It's like a super advanced form of predictive text like your phone uses. So if you're typing the blank, it will give you suggestions, and sometimes it's really accurate, and sometimes you can even just have, like, Gmail has this feature where it'll just autocomplete a sentence for you because it knows we write the same things all the time. But I was thinking about this quite a bit over the last day because we were going to record yesterday and it didn't happen. Part of the limitations of AI even is when the internet goes out, you can't do much.
That's right.
And so AI can't do the things that only a human can do. But humans can do a lot of things that AI can do. And so that's the problem that we're kind of facing right now, is that as AI expands its capabilities or just gets better at the job, maybe it was pretty weak at doing it, or it was really cost intensive or energy intensive or slow, as it becomes more efficient in doing those things that humans do in their everyday lives are going to be replaced by AI. And even there were some articles and papers recently. One was from OpenAI, some was through like the Financial Times, and it's surprisingly, disproportionately higher income jobs that are disrupted. So I want to give you this visualization, Wyatt, and give this to the audience too. So picture a line from 0% to 100%. And if you think about, for most of human history, there was 100% of that line is let's call it what work tasks, what people do. 100% was done by humans. Surprisingly, I learned this recently. The word computer was first used in the early 1600s as an occupation of a person who would compute. So the idea of a computer has been around for hundreds of years, but just over the last 100 years or 75 years, it was actually replaced by machines. So this isn't a new concept by any means. So if we take what over the last few decades of innovation with the internet, with even starting in the 50s with giant IBM computers, maybe 1% of jobs were able to be done by machines rather than by people. I would argue even today, it's still a pretty small percentage. But what we're seeing is, let's say that it's 15% of all work tasks, or 30%, 15 to 30% of all work tasks. I would even argue it's smaller because there's so much that's like from picking fruit to raising cattle, of everything that goes in our economy. We're a little bit biased because we work in white collar jobs where we're interfacing with screens so much. But it's a smaller percentage than you would probably think. But as AI gets more efficient, that percentage is growing. And all those tasks that it's replacing are surprisingly not low skill jobs, but high skilled jobs, things like accountants, lawyers, teachers, especially higher education teachers, very specialized things, salespeople, artists, writers, journalists, all these things that you would think would be protected because they were such a high investment cost in learning and require a lot of reasoning and skills, are actually being able to be done by a lot of these giant matrices, basically. And those, the percentage, even if it's 1% every year, that's an insane amount of jobs. But what we're seeing is probably that incremental ticker happening potentially every week now moving forward for the next few years. And we just don't understand how these compounding things work. And people, in my opinion, just aren't ready for that level of disruption. So we need to make people aware of what's really happening.
Yeah, and I think another thing that we need to keep in mind with this technology, AI is going to create a paradigm shift in the United States workforce, in the world global workforce. It's going to change things. We have to accept that. But let me kind of spin it, and maybe I'm living in kind of a Shangri-La idealistic sci-fi world, but human history is full of examples of new technology creating that paradigm shift in the working environment. Well, we no longer, most countries in this world no longer accept that, 9-year-olds should be digging in coal mines. Why? Because we now have technology that doesn't force us to utilize child labor. We used to work 7 days a week for like 12 hours a day, 16, 20 hours a day. They just worked all the time. And you didn't have to, because technology helped accommodate that. And it created leisure. Technology created human leisure, and humans love leisure. Everything from agriculture, which for thousands and thousands of years was an incredibly strenuous job. Now, I'm not saying it's not strenuous now. My in-laws are farmers. But what does happen is now you have things like combines and GPS combines that drive themselves and pick your corn for you. And it's crazy stuff. And what that did is allows humans to do human things. Listen to music, write poetry, make music. 4-day work week is blowing up in the world right now. Blowing up. Countries are experimenting with it. They're finding massive success. They're finding, serious ROI into it. And how are we able to go from working 7 days a week in the fields for 30 hours a day? You know what I meant, 20 hours a day, to potentially a 4-day work week where we work 8 hours a day for 4 days. And then we have the paradigm shift doesn't have to be bad, is what I'm saying. Can AI supplement and even replace jobs? Absolutely, 100%. It can, and it will. What people need to understand is that it can only, exactly like you said, it's going to affect typically more white collar jobs, at least immediately. And more importantly, like, maybe there's a plus side to it. And this isn't, I want to replace your job so that you have free time to watch TV all day. What I'm saying is your job may change with it in a positive light. All of this can be used as a tool to assist you. This is not going to immediately replace every person who has to use their brains at work. That's not how AI will work. But in order to reap the benefits and get some of that ROI of this AI, you have to embrace it. You have to accept that it's going to be a part of your life and the business world from now on. And like I said at the beginning, sticking your head in the sand will only hurt you in the end, versus right now playing with it, learning about it, experimenting with it. I have ChatGPT up. I have my computer right now. On this side is our recording software, Tanner, and on this side is ChatGPT. And I just dink around with it. I play with it. I experiment with it. I try different prompts and I learn about it. As a white collar employee myself, in AI could be scary, or I could be looking at how I can utilize this and make myself better and sell myself better and do my job more efficiently. I think a lot of this is a mindset for a lot of careers.
Well, like I said, there's so many things that AI can't do. And there is so much of our workday that is filled with tasks ultimately that AI will do. And the biggest thing, I guess, is you need to evaluate is, do you as an individual really enjoy doing those tasks? And so that's really where it changes. I mean, like, there's the security aspect, and we will deal with it for a certain amount of discomfort for a certain amount of reward, aka a paycheck. But are you truly happy doing those tasks? And that's really what's going to kind of change with this stuff. So um, a good example is, let's say you're a salesperson. Do you really enjoy sending all of those emails? Do you really enjoy parsing through all of those, the lead data and information? Are you really enjoy setting appointments and doing those pieces and parts? Or do you, the part that AI really can't do at this stage is really get to know a customer, their culture, their problem, try to understand their problem, dissect those, dig deeper, navigate around certain blockages and things that AI itself would just take as an example. Like, yeah, surely they're telling me this, so I'm going to do this. And we've talked about this quite a bit on the podcast, the difference between like a problem solver and an order taker. But when we look at the day-to-day nature of most positions, it is taking a pre-subscribed system, a list of tasks, and executing on that in a set, consistent way to generate an output.
Yep.
And that's your job, is to help find and optimize and build those systems. But those are what AI can do really well. It can do that way better than people. But the things that it can't do are where the future opportunity is going to be. And that's kind of where my mindset is. I think that the future is very bright because it's going to eliminate a lot of the drudgery and the drone portion of it. But the only thing that scares me, and I'm not one of those fatalists to believe like, oh, it's Skynet, it's going to destroy the world, it's going to do all these things. I don't think that's even remotely close. You can barely keep your headphones paired to your computer. So I'm not going to reliably figure that the AI is going to consistently try to manipulate me.
Right.
But people, on the other hand, especially if people are scared, can do crazy things. Or if people have the wrong incentives, can do crazy things. And that's really where we need to be vigilant and be mindful of, we don't want to change things too quickly to cause a lot of panic within people. We want to show them the opportunities and things that can happen, or we want to be aware of how these tools could be misaligned to what we need as a population.
Yeah, probably one of the more concerning articles I read about the rise of AI was an experiment that was done, and for the life of me, I cannot remember. I'll try and find the article and link it in the show notes. But essentially, it was how fast can AI hack your password? That I don't think it's going to be a huge surprise to people that I think it was like 50 or 60% of all passwords in existence can be cracked immediately by AI. And some of them will take a couple days. I think the longest it took was a couple days. And then don't get me wrong, there's types of passwords out there, 11 characters long with capitalize, and those can be complicated and take forever. Those still exist, but the vast majority of people's passwords in existence were cracked almost immediately with AI. So you hit on something there that is probably my biggest concern with AI, and you're spot on. Is we want to focus on how it can be used to benefit society, how it can be used to improve our jobs and all that, and society. But there are people out there that will always be out there who will utilize this for the wrong thing. And how do you deal with that? I don't know. I know it's only a matter of time before Congress holds some giant session and they start implementing laws and regulations on this. It's a matter of time. This is how we work. But it can be used for ill, and we have to figure out how to be aware of that and how to mitigate that. And I don't know what that means, but that will have to be something we figure out as a society soon. How can we make sure that this is not used against us, and not like Skynet, but our data, our privacy, all of this information? I don't want to dwell on the negative because things are in the works. Things are changing all the way. But I did just do something while we were talking. So I'm like I said, I have ChatGPT open, and what I did is I typed in, this is the only prompt I typed in. I didn't even use capitalization or punctuation. I wrote, how will companies use AI to improve profit? That's it. I didn't even put a period because why not? Or a question mark. It produced a list of 10 things, and I'm not going to read them all, but I did want to talk about. First one, process automation. We already hit on this. automating repetitive and mundane tasks. It's easy. We already have systems and logic in logic and systems that can do this for us to a small degree, but AI will be able to take that to a whole new level. Anything, exactly as you said.
Can we stick with that one right now? Because
Of
that's
course.
actually what sparked this whole discussion is
Yeah.
this new thing that just came out, which is called AutoGPT. So
Ooh.
it's autonomous GPT. So this is actually, it's an open source thing that you can find on GitHub. Some creator came with it, and it takes like so when you're interfacing with ChatGPT, like you were just talking about, you yourself are typing prompts into the system and it generates it like a conversation. What AutoGPT does, kind of similarly, you give it a role and you give it goals, so objectives, so what it's wanting to do. So you could tell it like, you are a nutritionist. I want you to go and create recipes based upon this, figure out, keep within a certain amount of calorie ranges. These are the kind of foods I like, whatever. And it can do those type of roles. But ChatGPT can kind of do that. What this one can do later is like, oh, but I also want you to scour the internet for certain trends. I want you to find grocery stores that are close to me and the goods that they would carry. So only include ingredients that I can source locally. I want you then to build those recipes, build out a chart. I want you to use Instacart to order those recipes to be delivered to my house. I want you to meal plan on what recipes I'm going to eat on these things. I want you to do basically whatever. It can automate all of these tasks and actually write prompts itself. And so a lot of times you can make it to where it has a set goal and a completion to stop running. Or the scary thing now is you can make it continuous. So it can keep doing these tasks over and over and over again. And some other examples that you could do would be like sales process. So I want you to go and source for leads. I want you to take those leads and put them into the database. If they're already doubled, but you need to double check to make sure they're not already in the database. If they are in the database, make sure that the information's up to date. Of all those, I want you to send solicitation emails to try to talk about our benefits as well as schedule a meeting. If they schedule a meeting, I want you to throw it on my calendar. When you do all these things, you can automate the majority of a salesperson's role. And again, to talk about the things that humans can't do, maybe that just means a salesperson looks at their calendar, joins the meeting, and has that in-depth conversation. But all those other tasks, this can do for that. And this is what's scary about it. It was before, it was us kind of manually prompting it. This system that came out just a month or two later automated that.
Yeah, and its ability to kind of duplicate and create its own tasks and run with it based off of a generic prompt is what it's going to do. Is it's going to create a whole new field, a whole new study, a whole new job, which is in the tech industry, in the tech field, which is AI prompts. Right, you're already seeing a massive explosion in knowledge sharing to create these prompts, and with AutoGPT, these prompts are going to have to be robust and very well laid out, and that's going to take some help, and you got to make sure you put those controls in. There's potential, and exactly as you said, the crazy thing is we went from ChatGPT, where I have to put in questions, to AutoGPT in a month, and in what's going to happen in about July, right? Where are we going to be with AI in July? Who knows?
Yeah.
What I do know is that I am seeing a massive push from major companies in the business world to get on board. You're seeing the understanding by companies now that this is a thing. It can either help us or it can hurt us. And it's our choice right now. Do we get in at the ground floor and get that value immediately from it? Or do we kind of become a latecomer to the party and hope we survive? You're seeing a big push right now in the business world, especially the white collar business. I'm in consulting. It's becoming massive, and the push, not the desire, but the push and the need to go fast and understand this technology and leverage it for your own benefit You're either gonna get in now and benefit, or you're gonna get in later and be a late follower.
Yeah. Well, people see how disruptive it is, right? So even the terminology that you use within chat, AutoGPT, things like agent, are derived similar to like what we talked about with computer used to be a human. An agent in many of today's role is a job. It is a travel agent, it's a health insurance agent, it's all these things. So we're really starting to see certain types of tasks going back to that being leveraged by these tools. And what it used to be, if you were how the business world worked, is if you couldn't do something yourself, you would hire either an individual or a company slash service to do that for you. But now these tools themselves are doing that independently, cutting out essentially what is a middleman.
Yep.
And business, and we all know this because we work for those. We are a world of middlemen inside of middlemen inside
Absolutely.
of middlemen compared to go from idea to output. This is going to flatten that stack in so many ways. So like you're seeing is companies who maybe are those middlemen are realizing, oh crap, are we going to change? What is the nature of what we're going to produce, or what value can't these specific automation systems give, and how do we do that? But also, how can we run more lean? Like you're saying, how can we incorporate these into our system so we're more efficient? Because business is ruthless. Business doesn't care. It's evolution at its finest, where survival of the fittest and go through. And yeah, like you were saying, if you're caught not knowing with your head in the sand, there's no food left.
Caught with your pants down. I don't care if you're a 100-year company with an amazing, backlog of great things you've done. If you don't jump on this trend, you're going to fall behind. That you're spot on. Business doesn't care about your history. Business cares about the value you're putting into the market right now.
So let's do two thought experiments. Let's do it from, I would love to get your perspective on this. So let's do it from the company side.
Sure.
And then let's do it from an individual worker side. So
Yeah.
let's kind of role play theoretically, like what is kind of the future and what are some of the steps that you should be taking. So let's start with the big one, big business. Let's say you are 100-year-old brand. I'll let you pick whatever industry. Sure. And these new tools are coming out. They're coming to you, Wyatt. Hey, we see this stuff. We want to be on the bleeding edge of it. What should we do?
Well, this is an easy thought experiment for me because I've spent the last week at my job thinking about this. 100-year company. I live in Omaha. Insert an anonymous 100-year-old company based out of Omaha. I'll let you decide what that is. They're specifically in the insurance industry. What could that anonymous 100-year-old company in Omaha that does insurance, how could they benefit from AI? Well, data-driven decision making. That's the actuaries. Actuaries dig through data to determine the viability of a client, of a person, of a patient, and insurance, and all this stuff. And it's all data. Actuary science is complicated stuff, and AI can do that. Supply chain optimization. That could be personal office supplies all the way to transactional products you provide to people. Personalized marketing, automated marketing for that specific person. And I'm not talking about creating groups of people like we do today in marketing. This is my group of people, males between the age of 18 and 30. No, it's not groups. It is personalized marketing for Tanner, Lytle, and Wyatt Carson. Customer service and support. Chatbots have existed for years. An AI chatbot will blow all of those out of the water. Insurance, sticking with the insurance theme, how about fraud detection? All fraud detection is pattern recognition. You understand what are red flag triggers in a person's behavior. You flag it, send it to a fraud department. You can prevent fraud at a massive scale that is unheard of in an insurance industry, which is all about, every insurance company in the world has massive departments to identify and prevent fraud. And AI can identify those patterns. Two more. Predictive maintenance. It will be able to predict trends in the market. Hey, We typically sell more life insurance claims between the months of X, Y, and Z. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't been in insurance in a long time myself. Things like that. Hey, there's been a shift in behavior in this section of the country. So individuals that are purchasing our insurance in that set of the country will now be subject to these new actuary rules. They can do these things for you. And then finally, the obvious one, and the one that people are scared of, is workforce optimization. I'm sorry. At the end of the day, there are some tasks where you don't need 10 people to do them. Maybe it can be done with 2 or 3. And that's not saying fire those people because AI took their job. This is an obstacle I encounter in my job all the time, every week, basically. I'm an efficiency consultant. And that in and of itself is terrifying to anyone who ever talks to me. They think I'm just there to make things so lean and efficient that they're fired. And
You're the Bobs from Office Space.
I'm the Bobs from Office Space. I've dealt with this stereotype for a long time, and I understand that. The cool thing is, almost every project I've ever worked on, we are able to utilize humans for tasks that need to be done that haven't been done because we kicked out and did away with all that worthless crap. All of those predictive analytics, all of those data-driven things that take a lot of time and energy can be done for you, freeing up your human capital to do more important, valuable value-add tasks. It's a consistent thing. It's hard to see when you haven't experienced it yourself, and it can be a very scary place to be. But companies have tons of work that need to be done. And not only are they not interested in just firing people and replacing them with AI, what they are doing is supplementing. And what I mean by that is, if they don't have to hire that new position in a couple months because we are able to cut out some unnecessary tasks, that's cost avoidance. And that companies love cost avoidance just as much. So now you're a human being. You're an individual. You work at said imaginary company.
Just a question, or stay with the company just for a second. I had some follow-ups. So since most of these tools are here today,
Mm-hmm.
what do you feel is a reasonable timeline for Company X in Omaha to actually start designing, ordering, implementing, training, and measuring these systems in the workforce? What do
They
you feel
should have
like
started designing their pilot last month. Absolutely. And exactly what we talked about at the beginning of this podcast. It's changing so fast. You have to get in now. If you wait till next year, your competitors will already have this. Your competitors are already looking into this. They are already creating pilots within their company to implement ChatGPT's API into their own systems. I guarantee you every industry is looking at it right now. So you need to do it now.
So you feel like in modern workplace, if you're in one of these legacy companies, maybe within the next 3 to 6 months, these tools and systems are already going to be implemented and integral, or is it going to take a little bit longer? What's your thoughts?
I think they will be implemented in a pilot scenario within the next 3 to 6 months in a large amount of companies if they have forward-thinking individuals to lead the charge. 100-year companies, I keep using that for example, I don't know why, but 100-year companies, they didn't get to be 100-year-old companies because they just jumped on every trend. They have processes and they have a status quo and they are strong, and it's kind of the tortoise versus hare scenario with businesses. If you're 100 years old, you didn't get there by being silly or stupid. You did it by careful thought and consideration, some experimentation, but no major leaps in innovation, give or take. Now's the time, though, because like you said, business is ruthless. AI doesn't care that you're 100 years old. It just doesn't. What it does care is that your competitors are using AI right now, and they're going to blow you out of the water in competition.
Yeah, and what I was thinking about this too was it's not just the competition you know now, but the versatilities of these tools enable very small teams to be potentially extremely disruptive and use these to leverage it much higher. So I absolutely love what you were saying about how most companies don't want to just fire a bunch of people. I mean, there is the case where someone's really not producing any value and their whole job gets automated away and they're unwilling to go into a different role, because most people do want to retrain and reassign because there's a lot of value to having quality people. But my fear is, let's say you take 100-year-old insurance company and they're disrupted entirely by a brand new 10-person team providing a better product, essentially using these tools for a much cheaper price. Because then there's nothing all those jobs at the 100-year company could be potentially gone if that disruptive factor takes them out of business, if they just can't compete. So those are the tools or the things that could be potentially overly disruptive. And I don't want to be this all doom and gloom, but
And if that happens, that really sucks for the shareholders. But you know who wins out in the end? The consumer. And that's what business is about, providing services and products to consumers. And AI is going to make products and services to the consumer the priority, not feeding that 100-year-old beast, but providing the max value possible. And
yeah.
that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I wanted to set that stage just because if you are, let's say, a worker in an organization that's been comfortable for a long time, you shouldn't just rely on the company to want to retrain you on their new systems or maybe restructure you. You need to take the initiative yourself.
Sure.
So this is where I want to hit you. If you're an individual worker at a company, or you're just even having a small business or whatever, you as an individual, what steps do you feel like you should be taking right now?
You should already be playing with AI in your personal life on your personal computer. You can look it up on your phone and play with it, watch videos, learn about it, and then start talking to people at your company. I don't care what level you are. You can be an entry-level analyst or whatever you are in your position, and you can have conversations about AI because everyone's hearing about it. Everyone kind of knows about it. And you have the opportunity right now as a worker that can be impacted by AI to be part of the charge in your company, in your industry. Now is the time. I don't care if you're not a techie person. I am not. Like I said, I don't do technology. Not my thing. I can run this podcast and I can open ChatGPT and type stuff without punctuation. That's it. Now, of course, it's more complicated than that, but that's all you need for a foundational understanding of this. And now you can leverage this as an opportunity to set yourself apart in your company, in your industry, to lead the charge in something that someone else is going to. Other people in your company are looking at this right now and saying, how can I, fit this around my job? How will this benefit the company? And once again, it doesn't matter what level you are. You can start having those conversations with other people, and people are going to perk up. I had one conversation about AI in my job with one person, and like 24 hours later, I had people messaging me that I've never met at my company saying, hey, I heard you like AI. What do you think of this? And I'm not senior in my company by any stretch of the imagination, but I have people now looking at Wyatt because I just talked about it and I started learning about it. It's not because I have a podcast. I hope to God most of the people that I work with don't listen to this podcast. If you do, hi. But it's very easy to set yourself apart now and make yourself stand out by accepting AI as a thing and then working with it and understanding how it can benefit your job and your company. Man, it's a great opportunity right now.
So there was a story I heard about how the Frappuccino was developed at Starbucks, and it was actually a barista who was just helping a customer and develop this thing specifically for them because they had a specific problem. The customer wanted a specific thing. That barista created this whole new thing, which is the iced cold Frappuccino essentially, and the customer loved it. But the biggest thing is that employee reported this new thing. It actually brought it up the chain. They talked about it, and then now that's $1 billion plus thing where you can find on the shelves at Walmarts and gas stations and everything. So I love that perspective that you're saying, like, look at how you yourself as the worker are probably the closest to the job because you do it every day. You think about these things. How can you optimize your day around using these new tools? And don't be afraid of just like, oh, I'm going to optimize myself out of work, because like you were saying, it's very rare actually that a company themselves would just fire someone who is be willing to innovate. But it is, like we were talking about too, it's going to be harder if a disruptive outsider does disrupt the market and you as a company are no longer competitive. That's where you should worry about losing your job. The other thing that I would like to hear on your perspective on too is, let's say that I think that each worker or each person in the workforce should be introspective on what they feel like they enjoy doing and what they are truly good at doing. Because this is a time for you, maybe if you are just collecting a paycheck metaphorically, to take your unique skills, experience, and knowledge and use these tools into that as well.
Yeah, no, and I know exactly where you're leading, and I'm going to go there with you. My last comment is, if you are a business leader now, and you are in a position where you could present AI, ChatGPT, whatever it is, to the company, and you can develop use cases that people will listen to. If you are that position, I strongly recommend you do it now, because there are consultants out there who can get paid money to go to your company and tell your boss what you should be telling them right now. Go out, take the initiative, and learn about ChatGPT, learn about AI, learn about machine learning, and try and bring it to your company. Now is the opportunity for people to stand out and skyrocket through their company by having knowledge that's going to prove beneficial to that company. And if you don't, consultants are going to come in a year or so, and they're going to do exactly what you could have done yourself. So, with that said, I know where you're going, Tanner. Because of our podcast, we like to talk about entrepreneurs. We like to talk about founders, and we've been sticking with this white collar theme for a while. Cool. What can ChatGPT, what can AI, what can all of this do, Tanner? Question for you. How can this benefit a founder? How can this benefit a new entrepreneur, someone who wants to strike out on their own?
So, like I was saying, we used to, when we did business, if we couldn't do it ourselves, we had to go hire other people to do it, or hire other companies to provide us with some service or software to do that. These, specifically with AutoGPT, it's going to really flatten that world and lower the cost of entry into that. And so, you yourself, if you have a problem, you recognize a problem and have a vision, the things that AI really can't do to the same degree, it can't really intuit in the same way that a human can. But if you have an idea for something that you want to do, it is like you have an army of workers already at your disposal with these tools. And so you can very quickly test it out, try to iterate, create designs, build a MVP, like a minimum viable product, just to see if you have something there, and do that at a rate that no one could believe before. I mean, we're already seeing text-based things, or a perfect example is GPT-4 in the product example. A guy did a scribble on a napkin of a website, and the GPT-4 was able to make him a website. And it wasn't a pretty website by any means, but it's already hitting the point where you can go from the idea stage to at least a minimum viable product in a very, very quick amount of time. So you should always be on the forefront of not being complacent, but thinking again, how can you better things for whether it be your company, whether it be for yourself, or in our case, in the entrepreneurial spirit, society and as a general, because society rewards people with money. That's our currency to show that you've been rewarded, and not only money, but I mean, that's kind of the capitalist way of showing that you've provided value because people actually bought it. So I think that is the advantage that we have now. And also, you do not have to be a long established programmer. So this is one of the things too. Specifically with Midjourney, I was seeing that someone who is not an artist and they would just try to come up with prompts and do stuff, their results were not as good as somebody who was creative and was an artist and would understand how to prompt things. And the same kind of went for developers. So developers were, if you were a really good developer, you could use things like Copilot, or now there's this new coding assistant from Amazon that they're putting out for free rather than Copilot costs money. You could use these to become more effective, but the delta between a novice coder and a super experienced coder used to be great. With these tools, it's actually shrinking significantly. The experienced coder is somebody who still is better, can produce things a little bit faster, a little more accurately, a little bit better vision, but it's not the same that someone who's inexperienced is doing that. And so we are really, again, going out to the agent idea rather of outsourcing. We can use these tools to broaden anything in terms of development, from the art stages, the visual, the UI, the UX. You can do it from the development side. You can do it, like you're saying, customer support, sales, marketing, acquisition. You have essentially a company at your disposal at any point without having to raise the millions of dollars of funding to get there. Which is crazy.
It can remove obstacles to starting a company, to, I hate the term entrepreneur. It seems so insulting to me. I hate that term. But people who want to become an entrepreneur, who want to start their own business, AI, market analysis, research, it can validate your ideas. It can do your entire business planning, customer segmentation. We talked about chatbots and customer support, financial management. It can do your bookkeeping for you. Should you trust it 100%? I don't know. That's up to you. That's you're gonna have to figure that. But it can. And then networking, it can. There are people out there. There are case studies happening right now, tests and experiments where people go into ChatGPT and say, make a company that will make me $100,000 in a year. Give me the steps I need to do to create this company. And it's spitting this stuff out, and people are following these steps to the T to see if it'll work. And they are active experiments going, because this is only a few months old. But there are people who are already building products and selling products out there 100% based off the suggestions of ChatGPT. Now imagine that with your own personal human creativity in the business that you want, in the value that you want to add. Imagine utilizing AI to supplement those weak spots. I don't know how to code. I learned about no code in Founders University. It was awesome. I feel AI is about to completely do away with no code, which is a brand new industry, because now you can do code. I could code utilizing AI, and I've never once written a string of code in my life and have no desire to, but I could. It's amazing the things that you can do, all with a little creativity, which is where the human component comes in.
Yep. So one last thought experiment, since we're getting close to our hour here. What are things going to look like in the future? Because I think the most important trait for whether it be a company or a person is being malleable right now, being open, being receptive, because clearly things are happening at a rate that has never happened before. It's exponential, it's compounding. But so if we have AutoGPT creating things, sending messages to people, what does that look like as an end user? How many messages are you going to get? Are those messages actually going to be valuable? If you have voice services like digital assistants scheduling appointments for you via phone, who's going to answer their phone? Or is it just going to be robots talking to robots? What do you think? Because I'm curious, that I have my own little opinions, but I'm curious of where your mind is of what is the landscape of communication? What is the landscape, a bit of the market, going to look like with all these agents and auto running things happening?
I have two ideas in my head of how this is going to go. First off, it's going to bleed into every section of our society. Whether you realize it or not, behind the scenes will be ran by AI. And the simple fact is, and the reason I say this is, it's business. Businesses exist to make money. And if it can utilize a ChatGPT service or whatever future AI type, AutoGPT, whatever, if it can utilize that and create profit off of it, they're going to. Business will be ran by AI in the future. Not all of it. I'm not saying it's going to be one person at the top wearing a big, 10-gallon bucket hat with a mustache while just AI bots run the company and make some billions of dollars. That's not what I mean. What I mean, though, is that in the 80s and 90s, when people started replacing typewriters with computers in the office, people were freaking out about how it was going to replace their job. And instead, it just created a new way to do business and a new way to be successful in business. It's going to be the same thing. Now, on the flip side, I also am starting to see a trend, and this is personal. I have no experience whatsoever in creating trends like this. This is just something I've been observing through news and social media. I think there's going to be a massive blowback. I think people are going to get exhausted by technology, and they're going to get exhausted by the speed of technology. You and I have already talked about cell phones. We both talked about getting dumb phones because we're getting exhausted by technology. And now the technology is exploding into a sci-fi fantasy land of AI. and people are going to get burnt out really fast and scared, and they're going to start backing off. I see people switching from smartphones to dumb phones. I see a mass exodus from social media. I see people trying to get back to more human things. Maybe we'll do some more gardening. Things like that. AI can't garden right now. Knock on wood. No, I'm just kidding. I think there's two things. This is how I picture the future. One, it's going to run everything in business. Behind the scenes, systems will be based off AI. Two, people are going to not revolt, but just back off of technology. It's already going to run things. It'll be in the background, but they don't want to see it. And the government's going to enact laws to try and control it. It's just inevitable. So how about you? What's your vision?
So I think there's two things, in complete agreement with what you're saying, but to add, I think there's going to need to be, and I think there will be, some form of human authentication when it comes to any form of online communication or output or generation. A signature, because one will need to know if you're actually talking to a real person or not. And maybe it's irregardless, like sometimes you might want to talk to the bots, especially when it comes to customer services and things like that. They'll make less errors, less mistakes, be more accurate, more personalized. That's perfectly fine. But when it comes to impersonation or all those other things, we need a way of verifying that this is real. So that has some needed, it's a needed thing, but it has some major ripples of, in terms of like a centralized database of everybody to know who is who and how they communicate and all those things. So it has some very unattended things, but I think that is probably where we're going to be going, is some sort of human verification.
You just quoted the entire theme of the movie Blade Runner.
Probably. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Tears and rain. Tears and rain.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I was just smiling because I was like, I've seen this movie.
Yeah, well, because we're already seeing where, again, the malicious people, they have spoofed, like there was an older couple who got scammed for thousands of dollars because they thought they were talking to their son who was in trouble, who needed money. Sounded exactly like their son because it could spoof his voice exactly. There's going to be times where if you and I are texting each other, how do we know that it's actually us writing the message? There's all these things of how do you verify? So I agree. I think that being real is actually going to be more of an important thing, because us as people, we have been living, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, growing and evolving and changing with these dynamics from small tribes to where we are now. And our hardware is still that old thing, and we crave certain parts. So there is a theory around for the longest time of like or not for the longest time, it's a new theory around a network state where it's people actually like forming tribes and communities online and forming like their own states or nations digitally. I'm feeling like as AI and stuff is happening, I think there's going to be a rejection of that, and it's actually going to localize to people that you can interact with because of that whole not knowing if it's a real person or not. And so being more involved in your communities, being more involved with your families, your neighbors, your people, I think is going to become exponentially more important. And then what we do for work, and this is the optimist in me, I think is going to become less and less important in terms of like your day and your focus and your vision, because a lot of the stuff that you were stressing about, the manual of typing emails and doing all this stuff, a lot of that can be done for you now. And the stuff that you find rewarding in your occupation, you can just focus on doing that. So I think that there's going to be a really neat paradigm shift happening with those things. But definitely there's going to be a lot of new regulation, and my fear and the libertarian part of me, I guess, is a little bit scared of this whole digital authentication and tracking, because it's probably what's going to happen.
Can I pose one more Shangri-La possible scenario? And we're talking 15, 20 years down the road.
Or 18 months at the rate we're going.
Well, yeah. What if, and this is the optimist in me as well, the humanist. What if AI advances so far that it creates not I've been using the term paradigm shift, but a real paradigm shift, not just how we do business. That's a paradigm shift, but I'm talking culturally, um, across the globe. What if a Shangri-La version happens where we change how we act as humans? And what I mean by that is right now, for 40 hours a day, we're working. Couple hundred years ago, couple thousand years ago, humans didn't work at a job for money. What did they do? They did what they needed to do. They had fun. They go to, they gather in their societies and they garden. And I'm not saying that AI will transport us back to the Middle Ages, but what if the future is where the paradigm is no longer we have to go to work to get money to live, where we're now human beings who can enjoy our family and go to the parks and things are done. I don't know. That's not 20 years away. That's 50, 100 years away, maybe. But I can see it. If it becomes so prevalent, humans just get to be humans and sit around the park and write poetry. That's a romantic version I have in my head.
So I think my hope is that, and this would be my line of thinking, is people will always want to do some form of quote work, but
I disagree.
but it is not the like work because I have to. It is the work because it is my purpose. It is my mission. It is my want. So it's not a matter that I will never hold a hammer, but it is a matter that I want to hold the hammer and it is light in my hand. And so the things that we focus, we're always moving forward, we're always creating, we're always doing things, but now we can do it because we want to do it and because we were meant to do it, and less about because we were told to do it. I think that is the future that I would hope for. And again, that goes back to our entrepreneur. You see a problem, a unique problem that you can solve, because again, there's certain there will always be. I'm not even like the definition of OpenAI for AGI isn't consciousness. It is
Mm-hmm.
just that it can do tasks equal to or better than humans on most of the existing work stuff, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's conscious. You will always have a one up on these tools because those are just tools. You are a biological being. You find things that are important to you and you set out and you accomplish those. That is the
That's what
future.
I
I
meant.
think it.
I'm not
Yep.
talking. I'm not talking Wally. We're sitting in reclining chairs and we're all no, 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 no. Absolutely, what you do is of value to you.
Yeah, I actually think that there's going to be less leisure in the future because I think we use leisure now as a balance to the unhappiness that we have within our work, because it's the opposite ends of pressure. If you put pressure on one side, you have to put it on the other. So we have so much pressure happening from our work, our careers, what we have to try to be, what society tells us we should be. And then we go, okay, we do all that, and then when we're done, we're like, boom, on the opposite side, and we're like,
Yeah.
Netflix. I'm just gonna binge. I'm gonna eat processed junk food because it
Yeah.
makes me feel good. I get my dopamine and my hits from all those things. But if there isn't all that pressure on the other side, and there's more of a balance,
Yeah. Makes sense. Well
that's where
said.
I think the world we're gonna go.
That makes a
That's
lot of
where I
sense.
hope we go.
Well said.
Or China invades Taiwan. We don't know.
Well, all right, Tanner. This has been a really fun conversation. I'm sure we'll have another episode in another 2 months or so about the craziest thing that we can't even fathom today. But once again, I'll say my piece and then I'll let you sign off. If you are out there in the world today and you work for a company where you think AI could benefit them, now is the time to get in. Start learning about it. Start talking about it. You have an opportunity now as a worker to set yourself apart and skyrocket your career by bringing something of extreme value to a company. People don't know what it's capable of. They're scared of it. And you can be that liaison. Doesn't matter what level you are in that company. Now is the time to set yourself apart and potentially make a career for yourself by knowing that this is going to happen. AI is here to stay and it's not going anywhere, and you might as well benefit from it.
Yep, I 100% agree. It is your time to look at your unique situation in life and see what you can take a hold of, because this is the ground floor of tools while they're at least seizable and haven't flourished and gone too far. To, like you said, to make it's rainy season and there's fertile ground to be taken. So definitely do that. All right. Yeah, no, love the conversation. Definitely want to dive more in depth. In the few coming weeks, we have a few more interviews that we're going to be doing. We've been talking to so many people all across Nebraska, entrepreneurs. Just it's fantastic. I still can't believe the growth that we've had with this podcast. This week I got recognized at an event, which was wild.
Woo!
Just things that we never would have thought of. So we're going to
Mm-hmm.
keep producing these, and we hope that you keep listening and make sure it does. I know it sounds cliche, but please like, subscribe, rate us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, 5 stars. If there's anything we can do better, please reach out to
Yeah.
us and let us know. But also, if you're getting value out of these too, please let us know, because that's the motivating thing and reinforcement learning on us. So,
Mm-hmm.
but thanks
Yes.
for listening. All right, we'll see you all next week. Bye.